You're listening to the Sass Says podcast. I'm your host, Christy Rocha, also known as Sass. I identify as a woman, a wife, and a mother. That should tell you a lot already. And over the last few years, I've learned the value of talk therapy. I have seen how my inner work not only enhances my own well-being, but also my marriage, my parenting, my relationships. And in fact, you wouldn't be hearing this right now if it weren't for the work I've done. My mission is to debunk the misconceptions and stigmas around what therapy is and who it's for. Let's normalize working on our mental health and seeking help when needed. We've all heard of self-care, self-help, and self-love, but do you often wonder how to actually make it all happen? I do. You'll hear strategy-based conversations with professionals, as well as inspiring and validating stories from women who are just like you and me. Think of this podcast as the weekly therapy sessions you didn't know you needed, with a dash of sass, a lot of vulnerability, and me, relentlessly asking, but how? Hi. Welcome to the show. Today I'm joined by Jenn Trepeck. Jenn is an optimal health coach, podcaster, and business consultant. A little bit about Jenn. She grew up the quote-unquote skinny one in a family of dieters, which was awesome until it went away. And so began her weight management saga. I love that she calls it a saga because it sure as heck is a saga. Ultimately, Jenn learned that nutrition education is the most important thing. We're all supposed to know this, but no one ever taught it to us. This completely changed her life and allowed her to say that she kicked her food issues for good. From then, Jenn set out on a mission to pay it forward and help people help themselves. After over a decade of working with clients, Jenn started Salad with a Side of Fries podcast. It's based on science, but it's lighthearted. Jenn talks about living life while still making ourselves and our health a priority. So today, we, of course, get into Jenn's work as an optimal health coach and talk about her personal journey with weight gain and loss. Jenn shares the significance of understanding how our bodies process food and the impact it has on our overall health. We talk about her 12-week nutrition education program, emphasizing the importance of self-compassion throughout the journey. All right, here's Jenn. Hey, Jenn. So nice to meet you. Thanks for being here with me.
You too, Christy. Thanks for having me.
I love the name of your podcast. That is so cute and so
Thank
on
you.
point. Like you hear it, Sound with the Side of Fries, and you just get it. I don't know, or at least I do.
Well, it's really funny because people say, "Oh, what's your show about?" And I'm like, "Okay, so you know the title. Take a wild guess, and then I'll tell you." Salad with a side of fries, right? It's wellness and nutrition, but for real life.
Yeah, I
Because
love
who wants
that.
a life without fries? Like,
No
no,
one.
thank you.
No, absolutely not. Okay, so optimal health coach. We just talked about the name of your podcast. We get it.
Yeah.
Why do this work? Why get into it?
Yeah. Well, like so many people in this space, it started with my own. I call it a saga. I feel like the word
My God.
journey doesn't do it
I
justice.
love that. Yes, it's a saga.
Right?
Oh my God,
It's a
it totally
saga.
is. Yeah.
So I joke that I was like the skinny one in a family of dieters growing up. And then I started to gain weight. I was a dancer growing up too. So I think I was more aware of my body and where my body is in space. So when I started to gain weight, I think my discomfort was like amplified.
Yeah.
You know? So I was like, okay, well, I know what to do because I watched my family do this my whole life, right? And I did every diet under the sun, gained and lost, the whole yo-yo thing. And I knew that like there had to be something else out there where you didn't have to keep doing this, but I had really never seen it. And so I just kept doing it and thinking, well, this is what you do, right? So even when I learned about the curriculum that I've now based my entire practice on, I was like, no, that's okay. I've got my thing, right? Like when we think we know, like we have our answers. I don't need whatever you have,
Cute. Yeah.
And, oh, she's sweet. So,
Yeah.
So, but I saw people and first thing was they were keeping the weight off.
Mm.
Second thing was this woman telling her story. I have no idea who she is, where she is, what her name is. Like, if you're out there, like I say this every time I tell the story, like, if you're out there, please find me. Right? So this woman's telling her story of removing like 150 pounds from her body. And I am sitting there and it's like it does not compute. Like, I can't see where 10 pounds could have been on this woman. And she's telling me that the equivalent of another human was attached to her.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, this makes no sense to me. So everything she said after that, I didn't even hear. I was like in my own head having a conversation with myself of like, Jennifer, they know something you don't know
Yeah.
because based on what you know, that doesn't make sense.
Mm.
So I was like, get over yourself, figure out what this is.
Mhm.
Right. So I worked with a coach. I followed the program, completely changed my life. Like, the only thing that's allowed me to say I've kicked my food issues. And
Mhm.
I really felt like it was the nutrition education that I think we're all supposed to know, but no one's ever taught us.
Mm.
And from there, I set out on a mission to pay it forward and help people help themselves because we all deserve this. Like, everybody has a body
Yeah.
and we're not taught the information that would actually be helpful
Yeah.
in taking care of the body that we all have.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I want to go back a moment.
Yeah.
How old were you when you started gaining weight?
It was really between high school and college. So,
Okay.
like, and
Yeah.
I'm young for so like 17.
15 to yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know the dancer thing. Like I did dance for a little bit, but it was mostly gymnastics that was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
Well, I feel like gymnastics is even more challenging than dance with body stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean I don't yeah, I don't know. It just I know they're both
Yeah.
tough.
Yes.
Um and I'm curious, it stuck out to me on your bio and you just said it here again. Growing up kind of identifying as like the skinny one in the family of dieters. I hear that I draw my attention wants to go to it mostly because I've never identified as the skinny one. Like was that
Yeah.
was that was that a good feeling? Like I don't know. Like how does it feel
It's
to be like
interesting.
the
Like,
skinny one? You know what I mean?
it's funny. Like, I didn't think that much of it at the time,
Mm,
but I do remember like an activity that my mom, my sister, and I would do is we would go shopping
yeah.
and we shopped a lot.
Yeah.
And I remember people in stores and even my mom saying, everything you put on looks good.
Okay.
And like, it was fine. It just sort of was what it was until it wasn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I also remember in college, I went to the business school at the University of Michigan and I had to have like business casual clothes for
Mhm.
like things multiple times a week. Like, I needed a full wardrobe of like
Yeah.
business casual, even in college. So we were in store and I remember being in the dressing room, like so upset that like nothing fit.
Mm,
And then finally something fit and it looked good. And I saw the size and I just like broke down in tears. And my
yeah.
sister was like, it's fine. Like, it's better to feel good and look good. Like, ignore what size it is,
Mm,
you know? But it was like, I had these very visceral experiences on two
yeah.
complete ends of the spectrum
Mhm.
for myself,
Yeah.
right? Like, what that looks like for everybody, I think is different. But it was like there was such a dramatic change in my own experience of
Mhm.
shopping,
Mhm. Yeah.
as
Yeah.
what that like,
Which
you
is
know.
big. It's not to be dismissed. I mean, I'm sure there were other areas of your life where it came up and it impacted you, but there's something about that dressing room
Mhm.
and the anticipation and the expectation and just the total disappointment. Um, and I guess I ask because, like I said, I've never identified as the skinny one. But I know that because I've not identified as the skinny one, I know people like there are people in my life that do, right? Um,
Mhm.
and I just remember, it's funny. I like my very best friend from birth is just a very petite person and born that way, is that way, and then
Yeah.
of course has like kept it going in her life. I mean, she would be that way regardless, but she enjoys exercise. She enjoys kale. Like she's that girl, right?
Yeah.
But I remember one time I was like complaining to her and my other friends about how there were certain stores that were not carrying larger sizes. And I was so upset about it. And she was like, "It's so crazy you say that." She goes, "Because I find on the opposite spectrum, there are so few stores that actually carry a size small enough to fit me." And it's like our society
Right.
wants to look at that and go, "Oh, champagne problems," but it's like legit. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Well, her option are kids' clothes,
yeah.
which is not what anyone's looking for either.
She's like, I don't know, I guess
Yeah.
I'm just trying to touch on I'm trying to respect my own experience, but also trying to highlight that identifying as the skinny one comes with its own challenges and its own problems, right?
Frankly, the foundation is not how we identify, whether, the skinny one, it's the fact that we have an identity around our body altogether.
Yeah.
That's the problem,
Yes. Yes.
right? Like our
Yeah.
society has taught us that means something.
Yeah. 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 I know that's a whole thing. Okay. It's like really a whole thing. Okay. And so then what was the program that you learned? Like what
Yeah.
was the thing that changed your life?
Yeah. So, and it's what I do with my clients. It's a 12-week, I call it 12-week nutrition education to
Okay.
build the tool belt to go on and live the rest of your life.
Okay.
So the first few weeks, we talk about food
Mhm.
and how our body processes food and what our body does with food and how different foods impact our body, how to really read labels, right? What is this stuff actually telling us? All these things. And then the second half, we get into sleep and stress and energy and food sensitivities and habits and behaviors and travel and all of the things that make this not quite so simple,
Okay.
right? The big thing in understanding all of it and relearning or maybe learning for the first time about food and the human body is that it's all chemical. You
Mm.
are not a failure. Your cravings are chemical, right?
Mm.
Your willpower is actually chemical or lack of willpower. We've been told that we've failed. We haven't failed. Every diet out there, every plan out there has failed us. And our healthcare system has failed us. Our education system has failed us because no one's taught us this information.
Yeah.
So, frankly, whether we are burning fat or storing fat is a function of our blood sugar. And what we now know is that our metabolic health is a function, right? Our blood sugar, body fat percentage, right? Our ability to burn fuel is our metabolism, right? Whether that fuel is glucose, glycogen, right? The sugar, or fat is also, right? Having that adaptability is really helpful. But also, the big picture is that our total health, the health of every organ in our body and every system in our body, is intimately connected to our metabolic health.
Hmm.
So, fundamentally, though, going back to, the program and the curriculum, it's based on a book by Dr. Sherry Lieberman called Dare to Lose. I think it's like out
I've
of
heard of
print.
this.
It's very
Yeah.
90s in
Yeah.
its like presentation. I probably have one here on my bookcase. Um, b- but it's really about eating to keep our blood sugar balanced. Um, and what it did is that it shifted for me every food decision from being emotional to intellectual. So, for example, like I used to work in hedge funds, the office, even before, like anywhere I worked, there was always free food in somewhere, in the kitchen or whatever. This hedge fund had in the communal kitchen. There was free continental breakfast kind of a thing. So like mini bagels, muffins, croissants, all that kind of stuff. And fruit. But of course, it wasn't the fruit that I like
Right.
on Monday mornings. And on Fridays, it was pizza and salad for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
So every Monday morning, right? Because how many times have we all been like, I'm starting over. It's a Monday, right?
Yeah.
So, because like Monday to Friday, my body is a temple and the weekend it's a frat house.
Right.
Yeah. So, right. So it's Monday.
Yeah.
Like we're going to get it together. I'd walk in on a Monday morning. I'd go to the kitchen to get water. And the croissants and the muffins and the bagels would all have a voice. And they would be screaming my name. And it's like I could look over here and then like my head would move back and I was
Yeah.
looking at the pastries and whatever. And finally, I remember one day, and oh, by the way, and like that happened, like, why do I suck? Why can't I just like not
Right.
want the bagel?
Right.
Right? Like, what is wrong with me?
Right.
So after learning, some of this stuff, I remember walking in the kitchen and being like, oh, wait, I get why that's appealing to me right now. So what I really need is this. Let me do that and then see if I actually still want the bagel, the croissant, or the muffin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And all of a sudden, I wasn't beating myself up. Things all made sense. And I could actually devote some brain power to other things instead of either beating myself up into compliance or trying to convince myself that I didn't want whatever the thing was.
Okay. 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 I like it. I like it, but I'm going to ask you to connect some dots for me
Yes.
on this because, and just for some context, I've had a lot of interviews now with intuitive eating
Yeah.
coaches, just like total anti-diet, anti all the things, pro food freedom, pro mindset over everything else. And and so and I am still in the weeds of this.
Yeah.
Where like tell I guess I need
How does it
more
all fit
words
together?
on
Yeah.
either how it comes together, if it
Yeah.
does, and or like how this is not going to feel like a diet.
Yeah. It's not a diet because it's not a list of foods. It's right. It's about understanding, and we can get into it if we want to or not. Like salad with a side of fries gets into it all the time, right?
Yeah.
There is a progression. In my own experience, I see it all the time with my clients. Now, intuitive eating is essentially what I do, backed by solid education and foundation of choosing foods that will give me the outcomes I'm looking for.
Okay.
Energy, sleep,
Mhm.
managing my stress, those kinds of things, right? To think that we are going to go from all the diets we've done before
Mhm.
to listening to our body is, for most of my clients, an inappropriate ask.
Okay.
We have taught ourselves out of paying attention to our body. We don't know those communication skills. We don't understand the language of the body. We have to relearn it. And there's a process of relearning it also in a way that untangles a lot of the wires.
Mm.
Because right now, a lot of times when you're craving sugar and carbs, what your body actually needs is protein. But we don't know that. We sit there and go, don't eat this stuff. Don't eat that stuff. Don't eat that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Cravings can be connected to our genetics. You're never going to outthink your genetics. Right? That's not to say that genes are everything, because they're not either.
I know, it's just funny how you said that.
Right? But like
Yeah.
so the way I see it is that everything fits together. There's different pieces of the puzzle. I don't think any one piece is the whole puzzle.
Mhm. Okay.
And I think that we have to, again, like what I did and what I do with my clients, is that we go from, let's relearn some of this stuff that we've been taught so that we can start to trust our body again. so that we can start to understand, oh, that's what hunger feels like. Now I get it,
Mm-hmm.
right? If I eat this meal and it's going to last me this long, and I eat that meal and it lasts me that long, maybe on the day when I know I'm back to back in meetings, that I have to pick that other meal as my breakfast. So then I'm not setting myself up for a crash and then all these cravings and then feeling really frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
It's when those things and those choices become intuitive
Okay.
that we get there. It's a piece of, like, I call it unconsciously competent. That's
Okay.
the goal. The
Yes.
goal is to get to a place where we are unconsciously competent. But
Yes.
we've never been taught what hunger feels like. We've never been taught what actual nutrition is,
Mm-hmm.
right? We are sold a lot of food-like substances that actually don't provide the body with nutrients. So you might be eating something, like, was it Pringles, right? Once you pop, you can't stop,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's chemical. Not only are they formulated in such a way to hit your taste buds and your brain so that you can't stop eating, the whole process of eating, right? The first piece of digestion is actually like your saliva, right? Sends signals to the gut that food is coming. And then what comes are these food like substances, and the body goes, well, I don't know what to do with this, but you told me food's coming. So I'm going to keep sending you the hunger signal till I get something that I know what I can do with.
Hmm.
Similar to the way that we can become insulin resistant, right? We know that to be diabetic. We can become resistant to the hormones that tell us when we're hungry and when we're satisfied.
Okay.
So we think we have no willpower.
Yeah.
That's not it at all. It's like literally chemically, your body is not responding to the presence of the hormone that says, I'm done eating.
Hmm. Okay. Okay.
So it all fits together. It's just a progression of getting from where we are to that place of unconsciously competent.
Okay. And I know this because I know the title of your show. But we're not but we're I just have to say it out loud. We're not saying that we're never eating Pringles again.
No,
It's
it's
just
about how.
understanding
So, yeah,
when and how and the purpose of the Pringles.
correct. It is how to eat, not what to eat.
Okay.
Every diet out there tries to tell us what to eat.
Yeah.
We need
Okay.
to learn how to eat.
Okay. And so and again, I like it. I like the emotional to intellectual choices. I love unconsciously competent. Um and I do just then need to clarify, I guess. We're also not saying that we won't emotionally eat. And when I
No,
say that, it's like socially a birthday cake, you want cake, you eat cake. Like we're saying we're still doing those things.
exactly. Exactly. Food is inherently a part of our cultural lives,
Mhm.
right? Every religion includes food in grief and celebration.
Mhm.
Every culture, forget religion, right? Every culture or
Yeah.
group of people, right? What do we say? We break bread, right?
Right.
We come together over food. Food is inherently part of culture and connection. That's not the enemy,
Yeah. Okay.
but we've been taught to make it that. So we have to relearn that piece of it too in order to figure out, well, how does this play into everything else?
Okay.
Right? There's so much of the mindset stuff and the reframing things that are really important as much as, oh, I always say protein and fiber at every meal makes removing fat no big deal, right? Little things, but like, oh, so there's that piece of it, which is sort of like what and when and a little bit of how, and then life happens. We have these celebrations. Well, so how do we want to handle it?
Mhm.
Right? We know that our blood sugar, our health, our energy, our sleep, and our mood, right? Even whether we feel like we need to beat ourselves up or not, is all going to be better if we start with the protein, the fiber, the quality fat, and then we have some of the cake,
Yeah.
right? I'm a big fan of the 3-bite rule, right? The 3-bite rule is actually based in neuroscience,
Okay.
which says the only bites that we actually taste are the first, the second, and the last.
Uh-huh.
Everything else in the middle is sort of distracted, brainless, whatever.
Okay.
So if those are the only ones we actually taste, what if we just do that? We have the food, we move on,
Yeah.
right? Have the 3 bites, enjoy it, and onward with our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big piece is having a plan and then sticking to that plan, whatever it is, right? Even around Thanksgiving, right? What are the foods that feels weird to talk about in this weather, but right? What are the foods that are Thanksgiving to you,
Mm.
right? It's not Thanksgiving unless you have these foods. Great. Okay, how much do you have to feel like you had it?
Yeah.
I don't have to eat half a pumpkin pie to feel like I had pumpkin pie. But
Right.
also, a sliver may not cut it.
Right.
Okay, let's have what we need to have and move on.
Yeah.
Or maybe have a little bit tomorrow too,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like it's about the approach, right? And thinking about it in the context of everything else also.
Mm-hmm.
So much of what our default is to pay attention to what we don't do.
Mm-hmm.
90% of what I do as a coach is point out to my clients everything they are doing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So the context of everything else, for me, that is generally like I find that I really struggle as it relates to my cycle.
Yes,
I
it's
mean,
chemical.
and I know it is, and I'm like I'm 3 years now postpartum, which I don't even know if you can still say is postpartum, but I just just to give you context,
Life.
and I, I don't know. There are people around me who are like, I think you're really struggling because your hormones are still out of whack. I've like I've also added an antidepressant to the mix in the last 3 years. Um, and so it feels, I'm saying all this to say that
It's confusing.
it's very confusing. It's so confusing. And ultimately, where I've focused my attention has been on the food. No, that's not correct. Has been on the mindset piece of like just understanding that like all food is allowed.
Yeah,
Um, and I think part of that is because it feels the most in my control. And so
sure.
when I go to take a next step, whether it involves dealing with my cycle, my hormones, my sleep, like I have toddlers, my sleep is not always in my control kind of thing. Um eh, this kind of this I'm not a researcher. I'm not going to do all the research you did, and
No.
I know that's why you exist. But kind of like taking these next
Yeah,
steps past what I think I can control with my brain is what starts to get like, holy crap. Like I I, I will feel great, and then I will feel I, I I'm just one of those
yeah,
people that feels like I'm in that phase of like I have two good weeks a month. And then the other
yeah,
2 weeks are the pre-period, the period, and they're just
yeah,
it's like all goes to all I'm not gonna curse, but it all goes to pooper, you know?
right.
And it's not like it was. It's not like a, "Oh, I really want these things and I shouldn't have." I'm not doing that anymore. Sometimes I am just picking up the M&Ms and eating them during that time, and I feel like some sort of empowerment over that. But at the end of the day, I
Right.
still cannot get over that I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight, and it is aesthetic, but it is also I I am an former Division 1 athlete that could run circles around people, and I lose my breath going up the stairs
Yeah,
sometimes. I put my sneakers on, and my stomach and my boobs are in the way of me tying my shoes, and I'm like I'm also aging, right? But I'm like, what are these aches and pains? And I can't help but blame it on the extra weight that my body is carrying. And I'm so sick of it.
I
But
hear
I don't
you.
know what to do. Like,
I know.
I've written myself the letter. I'm not going to diet again. It doesn't work.
Right.
Um,
But so
like,
we know what not to do.
I know. I don't
No
know.
one's told us what to do. We're supposed to just know, right? Or we think we're supposed to just know.
Yeah.
And then we're trying to think our way through every situation,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to come back to the vagus nerve in a second. Aside from that, those 2 weeks a month
Yeah.
when you're feeling great,
Hmm.
what are you feeling? What are you doing? Make that list. In the 2 weeks a month where you feel like you're not feeling great,
Hmm.
make the list of everything you are doing. Because
Mm.
odds are, even in those weeks, you're still doing a lot of the same things that you're doing in the other ones,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Doing some of them for sure.
The more we focus on the stuff that's not feeling great, the worse we're going to feel.
I know.
So
I'm so
keeping
hard on
that,
myself, Jen. I'm so hard on
it's
myself.
not just you.
I know, but this is
We
like the
all
fourth
are.
interview in a week where like I'm coming to that conclusion or the person talking to me is like, "Dang, you're hard on yourself."
We all are, though. Like, I wish that you, and I don't mean this in the way it's going to come out, I wish that you were an anomaly,
Mhm. Yes.
right? But
Yes,
we're
I
not.
hear you.
We function through this world trying to beat ourselves up into compliance.
Mhm.
And I will tell you, part of it is because when most of us start on whatever thing we're going to embark on,
Mhm.
right? Whatever thing we're trying to do or going to do, we're typically starting from like that negative low place. We're very unhappy.
Yeah.
We're uncomfortable. We're sad. We're whatever.
Rock bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, in air quotes, motivates us to start.
Yeah.
And as we progress, maybe things are starting to work a little bit. P.S. You have 2 weeks a month where you feel great. That's a win,
Yeah.
right?
I know.
Like,
Yeah.
amazing. Okay. Right? We've got some progress.
Mhm.
I think this is my own theory, not real science. I have a theory that when we make this progress and we haven't sustained it before, we
Mhm.
have this fear that it's going to slide back downhill.
Yeah. Mhm.
And we go, what do I need to tell myself to keep going? Well, in the beginning, what did I tell myself? That's when I was the most motivated.
Mhm.
What was that about? Oh, I was really unhappy. And I think we subconsciously draw from that initial motivation that was coming from this dark place and we try to beat ourselves up into compliance to keep
Mhm.
going.
Mhm.
Part of the process is to be motivated by what we do want. We want to wake up with energy. We want to have energy at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We want to be present with our kids, with our families. We want to be doing the things. We want to be able to do our work in a day and have energy left over for the stuff that's fun.
Mhm.
We want to say yes to the zip line. We want to, whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? And so we can shift what motivates us from what we don't want to what we do want. I just want to feel really good. You know what? You know what makes me feel really good? Not giving myself reasons to beat myself up,
Yeah.
which means, you know what? Yeah, I could eat the Twix, but I'm actually going to choose to not beat myself up today.
Hmm.
And that might mean not choosing the Twix.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Here's
hear yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
here's the other thing about the vagus nerve. Have you heard
Yes.
of the vagus nerve?
Yes.
Okay. The vagus nerve, for anybody, is the literal connection between the gut and the brain. Think of it like a 5-lane highway. Okay?
Mhm.
3 lanes go gut to brain. 2 lanes go brain to gut. You will not outthink the nutrients that you are or are not giving yourself.
Mm.
If we want to have the neurotransmitters, if we want to be in a better mood, if we want to do all of these things, We have to give our body the building blocks to make the neurotransmitters, to make the hormones that are going to help us feel good.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Okay. Okay.
It starts fundamentally with choosing protein and vegetables and some fruit.
Okay.
And it seems like, wait a minute, I thought this was the what to eat. That's how we eat to get to the outcomes and the energy and the mood and all the things that we want. Because the
I know.
energy that we bring to life is starting from somewhere.
Mhm.
And as much as we want it to start from our head, the chemistry doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. It's with doing these interviews, it's you hear a lot of the same things just said in different ways, and
Yeah.
I do appreciate at least for me right now, kind of the call to attention of actually just like biology and like science, because I've really that's like that piece of it has just been like too overwhelming. Like I said, that feels out of
Yeah.
my control. And I think I also very much underestimated how much time it would take to get to the point where I could even consider like choices based on the science,
Yeah.
because it still felt so restrictive, and having to kind of like work through, yeah, like even just stopping when I'm full. Like I don't know, when I'm
Well,
saying, I know
stopping
you
when
get
you're
it. It's
full is
like
also, yeah, stopping
that's
when
a
you're
whole
full is
thing.
also
Yeah.
hard. And I also say to people, like, the stopping, your body can self regulate chicken. Your body can self regulate broccoli. Your body cannot self regulate Doritos.
Mm, interesting.
It's chemical because of what's in the food, like substances that everybody sells us and tells us is food.
Yeah.
And it's not our fault. It's not your fault that we've ended up here.
Yeah. I honestly I just want to be able to like take a pill and be done with it. Like the thought of like putting a meal together for myself is like it's daunting right now. I won't lie to you.
Yeah.
It's very daunting, and that's why I end up eating what I eat. And I have a very, I think, old school, but old school traditional kind of thinking on like I was never the girl that thought I was being quote unquote healthy by having a salad loaded with ranch and bacon and all the like I understood the difference, right? Like
Yeah.
I didn't ever think that a bran muffin because it said bran was like actually filling me up. Like like
Yeah.
I have that awareness,
But it's
but my
also that
body's also
awareness.
changed. Like, my body's changed. I
Yeah.
can't talk like, the things that I was taught to eat as, like, the quote, unquote, "healthier things," like, my body doesn't tolerate. I don't
Yeah.
do well with yogurts. I don't do well with eggs. I don't do
Okay.
well with
So let
all
me
that
tell. So, first of
stuff.
all, do not eat what you don't do well with. Do not eat what you do not like.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, everybody after age 7 is lactose intolerant because your body makes an enzyme when you're little because we're supposed to have milk when we're little. We're
Mhm.
the only animal that drinks the milk of another animal. Start there. That's
I
weird,
know. I
right?
know. I
It's weird.
know. I did the
Okay.
vegan thing for a
But
minute.
they but like vegan for me is too hard,
Yeah,
right?
it was
I
hard.
occasionally have some cheese. I wouldn't call myself vegan. I wouldn't call myself dairy free. Because also all these words tell me. So any diet word, whatever you're using, it tells me what you're not eating.
Yeah.
You know what everything else is a function of? What you are eating.
Mhm.
So forget all the rules, right? All the labels,
Yeah.
all the rules, all the things that are telling us what we're not eating.
Mhm.
Look at what we are eating and the outcomes we're getting. And if that's misaligned, and by the way, the outcomes include our energy and our sleep and how we handle our stress and how we show up for our work and for our families. And like, are we able to be present?
Mhm.
Right? All of
Yeah.
those things come from this too. It all feeds together because it's one body. and that body's coming with us. So thinking about it in terms of what am I having? Does this sit well with me? Is this giving me the sustained energy to do the things that I actually want to do in my day and that I have to do in my day? Because there's also those two, right? And then going from there.
Yeah.
If putting a plate of food together feels daunting, put it in a bowl. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm totally kidding. I was protein, fiber, quality fat. Protein is clean, lean protein. I don't care if you want it to be plant, animal, something we've never even discovered yet. A protein. Fiber is vegetables and sometimes fruit. Quality fat. Half of an avocado is a serving of avocado. Not like everybody's like, oh, a quarter of a sliver of an eighth of an avocado. Like, eat half the avocado, right? It's not eat less. It's quality.
Yeah.
So if what we're eating is quality food, go for it.
Yeah.
Your body can self-regulate the avocado.
I know. Yeah.
Check some boxes, see how you feel. Start with some. This is also part of why, the coach doesn't have to be me, but work with someone who can help point some things out, give us a place to start. The way I sort of describe it is like in the 12 weeks when I'm working with somebody, we have 12 weeks to build the tool belt to go live the rest of your life, right? Not only is my objective not for you to need me for forever, everything else we've done, they give us like the book on day one, right?
Yeah.
And we try to do all the things at the same time. And it is a full-time job. And within a couple weeks, we throw it all out the window because it's like, who has time for this?
Yeah.
Right? Like a college course, you're not going to pass the final on day one. So when I work with somebody, we're focusing on this on week one. And then we're going to add this thing. Now week 3, we're talking about like week 3 is reading labels. So, right. So now we're going to go to the grocery store and just spend a little extra time in the grocery store this week when we go and read some labels. Right. We actually don't talk about exercise until like weeks 4, 5, 6. Right. Then we get into all these other things and it happens over time that we notice things. You might find something in week 6, 7, 8 that you've been doing and you go, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been doing that. It's fine.
Yeah.
We weren't in that place to make, and by the way, even over the course of the 12 weeks, like I coached this 2011, I coached my family before my sister's wedding. My sister and I grew up putting ketchup on everything. I had evolved into using a ketchup that was like cleaner ingredients. We started, and my sister was like, if you take my ketchup, I'm going to murder you. And I was like, look, I don't care. Use your ketchup. You know what I mean? Like,
of all the things. Yeah.
right. And also what got us here is not ketchup.
Right.
What got us here is not your ranch dressing. Okay. Like all the diet people are going to come at me. What got us here is not our salad dressing.
Right.
Okay. So what's funny is I'm recording something about salad dressing later. So it's a progression. And the choices we're willing to make today are different than the choices that we might be willing to make in a month or 6 months or a year.
I hear that.
Now, I don't even use that much ketchup. But if you told me to go from whatever I was doing before to like barely using ketchup, I would have been like, peace out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I have 2 more things I want to ask you, just so you have a time in your frame in your mind. One, I think is just a completely selfish and desperate and sort of like internally you can eye roll at me all you want.
Never
because
happened.
I think we have addressed it ad nauseum, but I just have to like at the end of that, I know I'm going to say all these things that are going to preface this, right? I believe the logical part of my brain believes that if, for example, I did these 12 weeks, there would be outcomes, there would be wins, there would be great feelings, and there would be life-changing things that happen to me and for me
Mhm.
that I know I will benefit from, but I will still be like, what I will still be hoping I lose weight. Is that
That's
like,
why is that the enemy?
I don't know. I think because I have done like all of this like mindset stuff comes back to for me, if I cannot accept and love where I am now, how will I ever at any point? And what I draw that on is anytime I've lost weight at my thinnest, it was never thin enough. It was never good
Yeah.
enough. And so
Yeah.
I have this in my head that if I cannot just be accepting, not even like, just be accepting of where I am now. How am I ever going to get anywhere? And it's a combination
Yeah.
of really, really still 3 years, 4 years of this not being able to accept it, but then also in the meantime, gaining weight. So it's like I get to a certain point where I'm like, okay, I'm going out, I'm buying new clothes, I'm around people, I'm not having a panic attack to see friends because my body looks so different than it has for the last 25 years of my life. And then I'll gain weight. And it's not
Right.
because I'm like sitting around eating ding dongs and ho hos. It's just part of this process now where it's like I reach a moment of maybe I accept it and then I gain weight and I'm like, "You mother effer." Like, it's
Right.
just
It's hard. You're so not alone. Like, it happens all the time. And I love all the intuitive eating people, and they're gonna tell you, right, it's okay to gain weight. It is okay to gain weight. It's the connection that we have between what weight means and what that
Yeah.
number means that we have to work on. And
Yes.
that actually looks like different tools than what a lot of people have told us. So what that looks like is, what are the associations that you have, you yourself, right? And every person, some things are certainly going to overlap, but also some things are really different,
Mhm.
right? What is the perception that you have of that body?
Oh,
What does that mean, right? And you don't have to answer in this moment, but it's thinking about those things and then going through one by one to say, is that actually true?
no. I know, Jen. I've done those
And
exercises.
then,
Okay.
okay.
Sorry.
And then, no, you're fine. And then write a list. And this isn't news to anybody either, but what are the things that you'll start to do when? What are the things that you're not doing now because of how you feel in your skin? Or what will be different then? And there are certain things, right, that are fundamentally different because weight discrimination is the most acceptable form of discrimination there is, right? So you go for a job interview, there is going to be a piece of perception that we're not able to control ourselves, right? And that dynamic. But what for you will be different? Is it how you walk into that room for the interview? Is it right? Like, what are all the
Yeah.
things? And
Yeah.
think about all the brain power
Oh god,
that
it's
right now.
oh my god, it's insane. I absolutely know, I cut you off because I already know. I
Yeah.
absolutely know a lot of my constant exhaustion is not just because I have a 3 and a 5-year-old and they make me nuts, but it is because I wake up every morning and I have to have this whole freaking talk to myself about how it's like you can just be. Like, it's oh my god. What did I do
Yeah.
yesterday? What didn't I do yesterday? Man, man, what we can do
Okay.
today? What we not gonna do today? Oh my god, da, da,
Put
da, 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 da.
Okay, so the things we did yesterday, the things we wanna do today, all those things, get it on paper.
Mhm. Okay.
Stop tracking in your head. I got into, like, not a fight, but kind of a fight with a guy who was interviewing me about tracking,
Uh-huh.
and he was like, "Well, a lot of my clients don't need to." And I was like, but they're doing it anyway. They're doing
Yeah.
it in their head.
Totally. Uh-huh.
Stop tracking in your head. Get it out of your head. I don't care if it's a Post-it. I don't care if it's a note in your phone. I don't care if it's pictures on your phone that you put into a photo album. Stop tracking in your head.
Okay.
Because what we remember is not what actually happened.
I know. God, we're so critical. I know.
Right?
Okay.
I
Yeah.
know. So stop tracking in our heads, put it on paper.
Mhm.
And then the other thing of all that brain capacity, what I really want you to do is think about what would that go to
Mhm.
if it wasn't occupied with all of this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you want to do? Like getting back, like with my kids and family program, like the first thing we do is like, I sit down with these kids. I'm like, all right, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?
Mm.
What would you do? What do you want to try? What do you want to play with? Let's experiment.
Mhm.
What are all the things that are actually meaningful
Yeah.
in, you know what I mean, in our lives and in the world? Because that's where we're going to focus on putting the energy and the brain power in our capacity.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I have to
It's a
okay, okay.
process. It's a shift. I
I know.
know.
All right. I want to ask you one more quick thing. I know I only have a
Yes.
few more minutes with you.
No, you're fine. Don't
The
worry.
one thing I want to and I in the in the simplest way possible just with the time we have. Talk to me about all of this and alcohol. This is like a thing for a minute. Like I have done like I've read some of the sober curious books. I you know, I'm not sober. I don't really ever see myself being sober. I don't know if that has anything to do with what you're going to say, but I have a I'm it's always a curiosity point of like is this just like the thing I need to cut out? I don't know. I'm just curious. Um I know you made a note of that being, a thing. What we get wrong about alcohol and our health and all of that.
If alcohol is a crutch, if we cannot function without it, or we feel like we can't function without it,
Mhm.
if it is the best friend, we might want to seek some extra help
Mhm.
to look at that relationship. When it comes to people who say they want to cut it out for health reasons or they don't want to cut it out no matter the health reasons, right? We got to start with, well, what role is it playing in the scheme of things,
Mhm.
right? And then I mean, I leave this up to everybody. Like, I make no bones about it. I am not sober.
Okay.
I have some clients who are. I have clients who get there on their own and go, you know what? I'm going to see what happens when I cut it out. But we got there over time.
Mhm.
I have some clients who are sober. I have, it runs the gamut.
Okay.
When it comes to our health, I'm going to rephrase that. When it comes to our physical health,
Okay.
right? Because mental health is, a slightly different piece of this.
Mhm.
With our physical health, and specifically because much of my practice is about metabolic health. Okay. When it comes to metabolic health, we have been told the issue with alcohol is what?
I don't know.
The sugar, right? It's the
Oh,
sugar in the
okay.
alcohol, it's the sugar in the mixers,
Yes.
and it's
Okay.
oh, once I have a couple drinks,
Then I
the
wanna
trap
eat, then I
opens
wanna
and then I eat
this, yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Okay. Little way how the body works. The challenge with alcohol in the body is the liver.
Okay.
Okay, so the liver is responsible, the key organ of detoxification. The liver has to process fat and sugar and alcohol and all of these things that we have
Mhm.
that are actually considered toxins by the body. Think of the air we breathe, right? The dyes in, you know,
Mhm.
our clothes. And like there's a lot of toxins that our body has to deal with. Okay. The liver missed the multitasking memo. The liver can only do one thing at a time.
Okay.
Okay. And the liver has to prioritize based on whatever is the most toxic.
Mm.
Well, when we drink alcohol, it's called intoxicated.
Huh. Uh-huh.
The liver or the alcohol becomes priority number 1 for the liver. So until that alcohol is processed out of our body, the liver will not get to the food we eat, whether that's the sugar, the fat, or all the things.
Mhm.
Our liver will not get to what's coming through our cleaning supplies into our body, the air we breathe, all the other things.
Hmm.
So it taxes the body and prevents us from doing all these other things that our body needs to do.
Okay.
So everybody's toxic burden is different. If we're living in a modern, 20 something world, odds are the toxic burden is dramatically different than it was even when we were kids,
Mhm.
which is, sometimes part of why what worked then doesn't work now for a lot of things, right?
Mm.
So, what ultimately happens is when we have the alcohol, we're choosing that piece over all these other body functions, over all the other things until that alcohol is gone.
Okay.
It's just a choice. Everything is just a choice. I just believe in making an educated choice and an intentional choice, whatever you want that to be. So the other night, I came home, I had a glass of red wine, right? I'm a big scotch person. So, like I like bourbon and scotch, but also like I don't drink the way I used to. I can't, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay.
Um working in hedge funds and like
Oh
finance, like
God.
we used to
Yeah.
drink a lot.
Yeah.
Um, I can't do that stuff anymore. Nor do I want to, for that
Right.
matter also, but it's also similar to like I don't know, sometimes food stuff. It's like we have the thing, we go, "Oh yeah, now I remember why I don't eat that very often. It sounded like a good idea. Now I feel gross." We
Mhm.
can remember that for a while, and that can keep us like, "Oh yeah, no thank you. I'm not
Yeah.
choosing that." Right? And then maybe in a few months we're like, that sounds good. Let's try that." Right? And then we remember, "Oh yeah, didn't feel great." And that can last us a while.
Mhm.
I just think alcohol is one thing where everybody needs to make their own choices and their own decisions based on looking at the complete picture of everything
Mhm.
and then saying, okay, if I'm going to choose this, maybe I make some adjustments to these other things.
Mhm.
So if I'm going to choose the alcohol, maybe I'm going to make sure that I still get my activity in that day, that I get all my water in that day,
Mhm.
that I have a quality, nutritious meal so that I'm not adding to the burden,
Yeah.
in certain ways or whatever it is. Like it's all sort of a give and a take every day based on whatever we're willing to do.
Mhm. Okay.
Having
Okay.
said all of that, you
Yeah.
get healthier each day, you keep alcohol
Mm.
away.
I was feeling better for a second there.
But again, right? It's just a choice. Like that
Yeah.
might not be the choice that you're willing to make right now.
Mhm.
And that's 100% fine.
Yeah.
It's honestly, like, I know I've sat here, like, spewing all these things, but it's like, ignore all of the things, what everybody else is doing and what everybody else is saying to be like, here's what I'm willing to do today.
Yeah.
And if today feels daunting, here's what I'm willing to do in the next hour or
Mhm.
the next 5 minutes.
Mhm. Yes. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Was that helpful at all?
Yes, it is. It is very helpful. I mean, I think, just from the alcohol conversation, like I know some of my curiosity for, I've read like Quite Like a Woman and,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, of course, because the phones are psycho, I started just randomly all these accounts on social media are like, oh, you might find this interesting. And it's like the
Totally.
sober moms and like the sobriety coaches and all of
Yeah.
this. And then of course out of nowhere, like a bunch of influencers and people I follow were like, hey, I just decided to quit for 30 days and now I am a year. And I'm like, whoa, like people are doing this. This is happening. And there's a lot of talk on social media about alcohol being the new cigarettes and like all of this stuff, right? And I think a lot of that stemmed for me from coming out of quarantine and
Totally.
feeling like things were just like, whoa, like what happened here? Like that slow progression of just increasing my use over time.
Yeah.
And when things started to open up and coming back into life, it was like, whoa, like no, we actually have like responsibilities and places to go now. Like we need to scale this back. But then of course it just really truly it always comes back to, is cutting it going to make me lose weight? And then I go, you know what? I still have to live. I still want to be happy. This is a big part of the way
Yeah.
I socialize. This is a big part of the way coming back to breaking bread.
Right.
Like this
Right.
is a lot of how my family socializes. And I have, to your point, if I look at what I've done and not what I haven't done, I have tweaked it. I have made
Great.
changes. Um, it's just that it just I think really comes from that desperation for like the fix.
Right. Here's the fix. It's not any one thing, right? It's a bunch of little things
Yeah.
that all
Okay.
pile up,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
It's not any one thing. We didn't
Yeah.
get here from the salad dressing. We didn't get here from the alcohol. We didn't get here from, you know, the cheese.
Yeah.
It's all of the things that come together into this perfect storm.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you. Okay.
Small steps in the same direction lead to huge distance over time.
Mhm.
If what we can focus on is getting momentum and consistency, it's going to get us way further for longer,
Yeah.
forever, right?
Mhm.
Than any of the other things. A quick fix, silver bullet, pill, whatever, is so appealing. The outcomes don't necessarily track to the outcomes we actually want.
I know. And I preach this stuff. I preach this
I
stuff
know.
because I know it. I know it in every other aspect of my life.
Yeah.
Every other aspect of personal development, I can be like, hey, that's not a one size fits all. We got to pull from this and pull from that and do all the things. This one, though, is like the little one that's hard for me to use my
Yeah.
own advice on.
Yeah. Well, we need outside support. We need outside help,
Yeah.
right? If take it out of this context entirely. When you were an athlete, right? You have a coach, you have a
Oh,
trainer,
12 of
you
them.
have a
Yeah.
team of people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yet we come to this thing and we think we're supposed to be able to figure it out on our own.
Yeah.
And then we think we suck because we didn't.
Yeah.
But if we wanted to do anything else, like
I know.
even
Yeah.
writing a book, even like any of these other things that we do, like even careers, we have a mentor.
Right.
Odds are, even if it was like, happened over time, it wasn't an intentional thing.
Right.
Like there are those people that we
Yeah.
learn from and guide us and all those tools.
Yeah.
But for some reason, when it comes to this stuff, we think we should know it all, do it all, be able to do it ourselves and not need anything.
Yeah. Silly.
Right?
All right, Jen, based on our conversation, is there anything lingering on your heart, mind, or soul that you want to make sure to leave people with here today before we wrap? I have like a lot of questions I didn't get to. So if there's anything
I
super
know.
important, like just sticking out to you, please share it.
No, I think, well, first of all, I feel like we should do this again. But I
Yes.
also think it's a process.
Mm.
Everything is a process. Changing anything is a process. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of the typical schools of thought, even in personal development,
Hmm.
right? It makes it look like there's this flip a switch overnight, everything is fine. And that's not actually how it works.
Yeah.
It's a progression to get from where we are to where we want to be. And so sometimes we might need help seeing what that progression might look like, because when we see what's coming at us, it's just the other extreme.
Right.
So like, you don't suck, you haven't failed, you know, you don't have a moral failing over willpower, right? We're human and we're learning to take care of our body so that we can do the things that really matter. And you're going to be just fine. We're all going to be just
Okay.
fine. You're doing so much more than you think you
Oh,
are.
I know. I know I am. I know I am. I just I know I am, but I need it's like between my therapist, these interviews, all the podcasts, all the books,
I
it's
know.
like I need the reminders tattooed on my freaking forehead so that I can just chill out. It's
Yeah.
like crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy. I feel okay. All right. Well, Jen, thank you, thank you, thank you. I think we will have to do this again. And I just appreciate you and your time. And I didn't give you the warning that I normally give people on this topic that it usually turns into a coaching session. So thank
It's
you.
okay. I've listened. I know. Well, thank you. By the way, for everybody, like, tell me what's resonating with you. What did you hear that was new or different, or that you're like, wait, I don't get that? All social media, I am at Jenn Trepeck, JennTrepeck. Website's A Salad with a Side of Fries. And the podcast is Salad with a Side of Fries. So
Perfect.
please reach out. Yeah.
I'll link everything in the show notes. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Oh my goodness. These episodes definitely leave me with that big sigh feeling. And sometimes it's such a combination sigh. Like it's a sigh of relief of like, okay, I'm learning something, I'm getting aware, but it's just such a heavy topic for me. But what I do find really interesting about this is that this was recorded a few months ago, and some things have played out in my life that have helped me see and understand some of the things that Jen and I talked about in a much different way. So, for example, when Jen talks about understanding how our bodies process food and getting into the science behind it, you know me, on one hand, my brain wants to start to tune out because I'm not going to do that research. I just am not. And even though I could work with someone like Jen, who's done all the research, there's still that period of time where you have to figure out how the research applies to your specific body. On the other hand, I do get how that could help with the mindset piece of it. So I joined Orange Theory, and if you're unfamiliar with Orange Theory, basically, and again, I'm not going to have all the exacts because that's just not my style, but basically, you wear an armband that reads your heart rate throughout the class, and you start at gray, resting heart rate, you get it up to green, blue, and then orange. Orange is the sweet spot. It's your heart rate is at the sweet spot for, I don't know if it's like burning fat or whatever it is. That's the sweet spot. Red is when you're really pushing yourself. And a lot of the class is spent working up to orange and then actually training your heart rate to recover back to green and then getting it up again to orange. And, so your goal is not to be in orange the whole time. Your goal is to be able to recover and get back into it, as many times as it warrants throughout the class. So even though I don't understand all of the science, someone who does told me this is how this works. I buy in. I enjoy it. It is enough of a focus shift to take this hour-long class from, okay, we're on the treadmill for 23 minutes, and then we're on the rower, and then we're on the floor, and oh my gosh, am I losing weight? Am I this or that? And it's like, nope, all of that is removed. I'm focused on my heart rate. I'm focused on that orange. And so I can understand how when I would be working with a coach, maybe like Jen, who's done all of that and says, okay, here's where we want to be at optimal health or feeling good, and here's the science. Now you just have to pay attention to these things like, I get that. I get how that is distracting enough, that is taking away a lot of the emotion, that's putting a very, very gray thing in sort of superficial black and white terms. Does that make sense? I just get it. I get the distraction of it. I get the confidence of, hey, there's some research behind this, and now move forward. And so I can see it more clearly now, and it's something to consider. I have not taken the steps of hiring or working with a coach on anything like this before. And that is because the next point that I want to share is that I really felt like there was something deeper going on with my body. And so the step that I did take is that I am working with a nurse who is a holistic hormone coach. And to me, it feels like before I can kind of get into the nutrition and movement, I needed to understand my body better. I needed to understand, are my hormones doing what they need to do? So that once I start to figure out this food and movement stuff in a way that feels really good, my body's going to actually respond the way I need it to. And I bring this up now because part of the process with my hormone coach is we talked a lot about liver health and detoxifying my liver and making sure that my liver is doing all the things that it needs to do. And so this brought up alcohol, which Jen and I discussed on the show. And so I started working with this coach in June. And from June until now, August, I have not been drinking. And I never actually thought I would say that. For as curious as I've been for so long, I never actually did it. And I wasn't sure that I wanted to. And I really had a lot of apprehension around it when it was first suggested. And basically my coach said to me, you're an adult. I'm not going to tell you you can't drink. But if you think about what we're doing, detoxifying your liver and getting it healthy, anytime you drink, you're just going to be making the process take longer. You're setting yourself back. And we've had a couple of conversations around it. You know, how far set back will I be? And I've had a couple of drinks. I full transparency, I have had a couple of drinks. And coming from someone who could have easily had 4 drinks a week to have had 4 drinks in 2 months, yeah, it's been a big thing. And I don't see myself being sober, but I do see how I can more easily now, with that separation, be pickier and choosier about it. I can see how I can be more intentional. I don't believe that it has to be all or nothing. You know, I understand what Jen was saying more. And it's also reminding me of Colleen Ryan Hensley, where she's not sober, but she could go 2 weeks, 2 months without, and then drink. And like, that just seemed so unrealistic to me. And now I totally get that. Like, yeah, maybe that's where I'm moving towards. You know, when I want it, I have it. When there's an event, when there's an occasion that feels like I want it, or even if the occasion is just like a date night with my husband, but it's special for some reason, or it just feels like I want it, I'll have it. But those sort of knee-jerk reactions to just, hey, we're out, I'll have it, I can see, I get it now. I see it. I've had enough separation from it, and I've seen and felt the benefits of not having it on a regular basis, that it helps me understand when it's worth it. And that's for now. I think that it's okay that some of this will and could change as time goes on, but that's where I'm at now. And so lastly, I want to draw your attention to what Jen said about, you know, around her experience growing up as the quote unquote skinny one. I loved what she said, that it's not really about how we identify as the skinny one or the not skinny one or whatever we identify as. It's the fact that we have an identity around our body altogether. That's the problem. That society has taught us that having an identity around our body type means something about who we are or our value in this world or how attractive we are. Like, I want to come in here and just say definitively, It doesn't. Plain and simple. But it's not that simple, is it? Because this messaging is everywhere, and it's a really, really hard fight to unlearn it and to fight against it. And you're definitely swimming against the tide. I feel it. But I'm trying. I'm trying. And just as recently as Tuesday, I said in a therapy session that I don't feel prisoner to food anymore. And that has taken about 2 years to come to. It's not perfect, right? I have my moments, but gosh, what a difference. And so I say that to just say, if you're on a journey that's similar to mine, or you're interested in learning more about food and body and how this impacts our overall health and wellness and mental health, that it feels really daunting, but there are people like Jenn who want to help you, and just know that it takes time, and that's okay, because you've got this body for the rest of your life. Okay? All right. That's it. Thank you, Jenn. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Sass Says is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. This podcast is meant to be educational and not meant to replace professional therapy or professional medical attention. To learn more about today's show and what's new in my world, head over to sasssays.com. Thanks so much. Talk later.